Welcome back to DK Sports Radio. This is Chris Carter, NFL analyst, and you're listening to The Carter Six Pack. And here on DK Sports Radio, we like to talk about top 6 things on the Carter Six Pack. This is more like a bottom 6 because we're talking about the top 6 first-round draft busts of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Draft season is coming soon. The scouting combine is in about a week and a half. So we're gonna get right into the top draft busts in Steelers history. There's quite a few recent, and going back a bit, we're gonna go back about as early as the early '80s after the legendary '70s team went through. So let's get this list started with number 6.
Number 6.
Coming in at number 6, and one that people might say should be higher, is the 1999 first-round draft pick receiver Troy Edwards. Now, Troy Edwards came in. He was the 13th pick of the draft, and he was a receiver that was supposed to be a supreme playmaker. He was not that. Hines Ward was already on the team. He eventually became the superstar receiver of the team. But Troy Edwards was supposed to be the number 2 guy, or he was supposed to be the number 1 guy that made Hines Ward a number 2 and gave Cordell Stewart or Mike Tomczak or whoever they were going to put at quarterback back there the ultimate threat to combine, and it just never happened. Edwards kind of came in, never really became a threat. He was a supreme punt returner in college. He didn't do that at all in the pros, and he fizzled out, left the team shortly after, and he really didn't even make a name for himself in the NFL. Players that the Steelers could have gotten with that pick: Javon Curse, Damian Woody. Curse was the freak with the Titans. He was huge. He was fast. He was making plays all over the place. He was a threat for them. Later went on to play for the Eagles in their Super Bowl appearance year against the Patriots. And then, of course, Damian Woody, the offensive lineman for the New England Patriots, part of their early 2000s Super Bowl run. Some opportunities there for the Steelers. But the reason that Troy Edwards, even though he's one of the highest picks in the Bill Cowher era that they had that didn't work out. The reason he doesn't get any worse on this list is because there weren't that many superstars right behind him that ended up working out, but still a bust for sure.
Number 5.
And number 5 comes in as one of the highest picks we'll talk about. With the 11th pick of the 1992 draft, the Steelers selected tackle Leon Searcy. Now, Searcy was supposed to be the best tackle of that draft. He was going to be an offensive lineman that set the tone for those guys in the Bill Cowher era. But he just didn't. He had 5 years with the Steelers and then ended up playing for the Jaguars. He was a second-team All-Pro in his last year with the Steelers, but it wasn't enough to keep him around. And then eventually he did make the Pro Bowl in his final year in 1999 in the league, but he was with the Jaguars then. But I mean, when you pick somebody at 11th overall, like Ben Roethlisberger, you want that player to be a franchise player for your team, and that's a huge swing and a miss. What doesn't put Searcy up higher on the list, similar to Edwards, there weren't that many guys that came behind him that were for surefire. You blew that pick, and I think that's the thing that holds on. Now, there were some guys that came in the later rounds that, had everyone else known, they probably would have gone higher. Some of those names are like Carl Pickens, the receiver for the Bengals that used to light up the Steelers in the late 90s. Jimmy Smith, the receiver drafted by the Cowboys, went on to play for the Jaguars with Keenan McCardell. He finished his career with 12,000 receiving yards. And then, of course, defensive back Darren Woodson, who won some Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys in the mid-90s. So Searcy, definitely one of the top busts for the Steelers. But when you think about the other players that were around, they would have been a bust if they had went with most of the guys that went in that first round at the positions of need they had at the time. But considering all things, Searcy still has to be considered a bust. 11th overall pick, and you get only 5 years of the guy and no Pro Bowls. That's a huge miss.
Number 4.
Number 4 is a guy that everyone's waiting to hear his name, and we're going to say it now to get it out of the way. That's Jarvis Jones. In the 2013 draft, the Steelers were looking for that premier pass rusher to replace LaMarr Woodley because he had been let go by the team. With the 17th overall pick, they took Jarvis Jones, who looked like the prototypical outside linebacker, 3-4 outside linebacker for Georgia in his days. He had good sack numbers. He looked like he was an athlete that could compete, but he really didn't have any burst. His combine was not impressive, and but people look past that. They say, well, he'll be good because he'll be good with technique, or he'll be able to get himself in position to make plays. And as most Steelers fans know, he did not do that. He never had more than, I think, 4 sacks in a season. He might have had 4 sacks in his career with the Steelers. But what really puts this above Troy Edwards and Leon Searcy is because they passed on several players that could have contributed to the team immediately. Players like Eric Reed for the San Francisco 49ers, Xavier Rhodes, the all-pro corner for the Minnesota Vikings, DeAndre Hopkins, the superstar wide receiver and arguably the number 2 receiver in the NFL right now for the Houston Texans, and of course Darius Slay Jr., the cornerback for the Lions. Now, you could say Hopkins would not be considered because at the time, you think in 2013, the Steelers had Antonio Brown, Mike Wallace, they had Emmanuel Sanders at that time. They were still figuring things out with the offense, and they needed to get defensive pieces. Primarily, they needed a pass rusher, and there weren't that many great pass rushers that came after Jarvis Jones that were graded as automatic first-round picks. But when you look at the need for secondary in those years, and you see that Slay and Reed and Rhodes were all there, that's what makes Jarvis Jones a hurt of a pick and a super bust.
Number 3.
Number 3 is a name that will forever live in infamy in Pittsburgh. In the 1983 draft, the Steelers selected with their 21st pick Gabe Rivera. Now, I feel like it's a little unfair to pick on Gabe Rivera because he got in a car accident and they never really saw what Senior Sack would turn out to be. But what makes him have to go there is because the Steelers passed up on Dan Marino and Darrell Green, 2 Hall of Famers that were selected almost immediately after Gabe Rivera was selected. Now, what doesn't make Rivera number 1 because of those 2 guys, because he was the 21st overall pick of the draft. If it wasn't like Darrell Green and Marino were surefire guys that everyone was gunning for at that point in time, they were snagged in the later part of the first round. So, Rivera, it's one of those things that it might not have been a misevaluation of talent on the part of the Steelers, so that kind of takes back from the whole bust department. But when you look at the opportunity they missed of not drafting the hometown Dan Marino guy, you have to wonder what would have been, because Dan Marino beat the Steelers in that 1984 playoff run. And imagine those 90s teams with Rod Woodson. Now, granted, they might not get Rod Woodson because Dan Marino's probably having them at better records, but imagine that 90s defense, the Blitzburg defense that they were bringing heat with Greg Lloyd and Kevin Green and Rod Woodson with Marino at quarterback instead of Neil O'Donnell. They might have gotten some Super Bowls out of the 90s and maybe even the 80s.
Number 2.
Number 2 comes from 1991, a name that people might not remember. Huey Richardson was selected with the 15th overall pick of the draft. What puts him up at number 2 above Gabe Rivera is because Huey Richardson didn't even last with the team. They didn't even get a guy for his rookie contract, and it wasn't like he was in a car accident like Gabe Rivera. He just was bad, and he didn't stick. He was a head case, didn't stick around, and also because of the guys that were passed up for him. It wasn't just Marino and Green. The Steelers passed up on, get this, Ricky Waters, okay, decent running back. Ended up not really needing him because they eventually got Jerome Bettis in a few years out of a trade. But Aeneas Williams. Now, Aeneas Williams with a 3rd-round grade. He was drafted in the 3rd round. No one really knew he'd be a superstar defensive back that would go to the Hall of Fame. So that's another story. But imagine Aeneas Williams with Rod Woodson in that secondary. Good Lord, that would be scary. But probably the name that everyone would probably look at is Brett Favre when he got drafted in the 2nd round. Brett Favre's another guy. You put him on that 90s team, and you let him work with the team that they were building. Who knows what could have happened? Huey Richardson, because of that, is my number 2 first-round draft bust for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's time to cash in on non-stop sports action with MyBookie.ag. They have in-game live betting on nearly every sporting event, plus MyBookie.ag will match your deposit with a bonus up to 100%. With decades of expertise and no-hassle payouts, you'll experience the greatest customer service in the business, guaranteed. Use promo code DKRadio to activate your bonus of up to 100%. Call 844-900-BETS or visit MyBookie.ag to open an account. Sign up today.
Miller Lite is the original light beer, and we'll always brew it to have more taste, with only 96 calories and 3.2 carbs. Because we believe that if you compromise on taste, you can taste the compromise. Miller Lite. Hold true.
Great beer, great responsibility. 2018 Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Average analysis, 12 fluid ounces. Less than 1 gram protein, 0 grams fat.
What I want from my public accounting firm is big ideas.
But I don't want to lose the personal attention.
My company needs global capabilities.
From a firm with local ownership.
And I want to work with industry experts.
Who take the time to understand my unique challenges. And that's what sets Schneider Downs apart. Expertise for the most complex business issues. With the service you need every day. To learn how our big thinking with a personal focus can help your company, visit schneiderdowns.com.
If you're one of the thousands of Western Pennsylvanians who love to get outdoors, then you need to check out this amazing new website, stepoutside.org. Hi, I'm Dan Kovacevic of DK Sports Radio. I'm born and raised in Pittsburgh. I know about the outdoor life that's available to all of us in Western Pennsylvania. Learn where, when, and how you can go camping, hiking, hunting, take part in power sports, shooting sports, water sports in your local community, across our region, across the country at stepoutside.org.
In Pittsburgh, we bleed black and gold and love our city. Born in Pittsburgh and now celebrating 130 years in business, Henny Jewelers is proud to be your premier jewelry store. Whether it's choosing that watch you've always wanted or you're searching for the ring that was made for her, trust Henny Jewelers. Visit our store on Walnut Street in Shadyside to see our extensive inventory of designer engagement rings, watches, and one-of-a-kind jewelry. For more, go to hennyjewelers.com and follow on social.
Embarrassed by that stained carpet in your office? Tired of looking at your dull, dirty floor? My Floor Needs is here to fix that. With years of experience and 24/7 service, My Floor Needs offers stripping and waxing, carpet, tile, grout, and concrete cleaning, as well as polishing and buffing services. Call 888-67-MY-FLOOR or email info@myfloorneeds.com for a free estimate and get your floors looking like new again. Whatever your floor needs, call 888-67-MY-FLOOR.
Does your company ever miss its sales goals or struggle getting new business?
Is it tough to hire or to give reps the right tools?
Hi, I'm Dan, and I started Engaged Prospect right here in Pittsburgh to help companies like yours.
And I'm Sam. We're helping companies hit sales goals and grow their businesses.
Think of us as your inside sales team.
Our clients are experts in their fields. We're experts in inside sales.
Give us a call today at 412-715-5151.
Or visit us online at engagedprospect.com/DK.
It's been 50 years since the Summer of Love, but if you're not performing as well as you'd like, check out NEDforless.com. I'm Eric Cushy of Curtis Pharmacy. Don't pay premium prices for the little blue pill. So Denafil, the same active ingredient as in Viagra, costs 80% less. NEDforless.com. All we need is your physician's name. We do the rest. Free shipping, too. NDDforless.com. Curtis Pharmacy, Western PA's Better Way Pharmacy. CurtisPharmacy.com.
And here we go with the quick recap before we get to number 1. Number 6 was the 1999 receiver Troy Edwards, selected at 13th overall. Number 5 was from 1992 Leon Searcy, selected at 11th overall. Number 4 was Jarvis Jones from 2013. He was selected at 17th overall. Number 3 was Gabe Rivera, selected at 21st overall in 1983, passing up Dan Marino and Darryl Green. Number 2, as we said, was Huey Richardson, the linebacker in 1991. He was the 15th overall pick. They passed up on Brett Favre for him. And that leads us to number 1.
Number 1.
Now, number 1, running back Tim Worley, in 1989, the 7th overall pick of the draft. Now, you think back to the times the Steelers have had top 10 picks. There's not that many. Like, there was actually a count done since, I think, 1970 or something like that, and the Steelers had the best worst season of any team in the league, and that was 4 wins. Every other franchise going back had a season with 3 wins or 4 or 2 wins or 1 win or no wins. But the Steelers usually, even when they were really bad, they weren't as bad as other franchises have been. But in 1989, or 1988 rather, they were that bad, and that got them the 7th overall pick. Now, Tim Worley, and you can make the same argument I said about other picks. There weren't that many other superstar running backs that came after him. Maybe because the Steelers were hoping that Barry Sanders would fall to him because he was the 3rd overall pick of the draft. But ultimately, he didn't. He wasn't the guy. But what makes this really stand out is because there were 2 guys that were superstars that came after him in that same round. That was Steve Atwater and Andre Rison. Steve Atwater, the super safety that destroyed the Nigerian Nightmare. He was a legend for the Broncos for many years. Went on to win some Super Bowls with them. Who knows what? Again, you put him in that secondary with Rod Woodson and Carnell Lake. You know, that just, imagine the fear that teams would have had throwing on that Steelers team. And Andre Rison, a superstar wide receiver for several teams, in fact, in the NFL. But it was really, he had a really odd path in the NFL. He was drafted at the 22nd pick overall. He started with the Colts in '89, immediately went to the Falcons for 5 years. But the guy was a 5-time Pro Bowler. He was a first-team All-Pro in 1990, second-team All-Pro in the net for the next 3 years. But thing is, he did end up winning a Super Bowl with the Green Bay Packers in 1996. He was a prominent player, another receiver that you put him in the mix in those years. Maybe the Steelers make a difference, but ultimately, you look at that list and you see that they passed up on Steve Atwater for Tim Worley. And anytime you get a 7th overall pick that ends up being as good as Tim Worley, that's a super bust. And that's why he's the number 1 pick. Although, if you play Tecmo Super Bowl, I always preferred to run with Tim Worley because he was just slightly faster than Merrill Hodge back in the day. Now, Hodge was the man and all that, but Tim Worley could get out on some people because, Nintendo didn't keep up on who exactly was really good or really bad. But you put Tim Worley in the backfield, let him run that sweep around the corner. If they was slacking, you could get around it. But if you played against LT, Lawrence Taylor and the Giants, yeah, it was over with that. But that's why Tim Worley is our top draft bust in Steelers history. Do you like the list? Do you not like the list? Do you say, hey, there should have been this guy on there? Hit me at Carter Critiques on Twitter, and you can debate at any time or comment in the comment section here on DKPittsburghSports.com. This has been the Carter 6-pack counting down the top Steelers draft bust. Who knows? We may have to add some more to this list in a year or two, but there's always more that you can add to the list, and you can debate with me at any point in time. From DK Sports Radio, Chris Carter, the NFL analyst here on DKPittsburghSports.com. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned for more great content here.